Hi, good evening. Thank you. I'm ready for your questions.
Senator.
Yeah, I think you gave him the microphone first. Go.
Senator, what's your position on the use of airstrikes against targets in Pakistan, even if they would be expanded, as has been reported right now, to places like Quetta?
I am not privy to the exact arrangements or the communications between the coalition in Afghanistan and the Pakistani government. But it is published information that there is information exchanged on that targeting. So it's pretty clear that this is a very careful operation, because even though you may succeed in taking out some identified enemy, you also have to be careful of the public relations backlash when innocent civilians are either killed or wounded. And so it's my understanding that these operations are selected with great care and are extremely high value. But I have not the intelligence information, nor have I been informed exactly how all that takes place, except for the published reports that there is information sharing between the government of Pakistan and the coalition forces in Afghanistan.
Senator, I think we met once at Jalam Airport in '73. You were prisoner of war released, and I was journalist.
You don't look that old.
So that time the world was very sharply divided. Since then it has changed, but the dividing lines stay. So the first question: Do you think that is only Russia is to blame for this situation, or the Western democratic countries have missed something too? And what is your recipe to prevail this situation, to soften these dividing lines?
Well, I don't quote blame Russia. In this respect, I don't think it would be helpful for U.S.-Russia relations for me to start saying that Russia is to blame for everything. I mentioned in my comments a little while earlier that maybe we will look back on the period of the collapse of the then Soviet Union, for that period, a decade or so, that we may have missed opportunities, both on the Russian side and on the European and U.S. side, maybe by having too high expectations for how the Russian government and people would adapt to the institutions of democracy. So I'm not trying to blame Russia, because I do take exception to some of Russian actions, including not adhering to the agreement that President Sarkozy entered into with the Russians to bring about the cessation of hostilities in Georgia. I think that there's other activities and rhetoric that the Russians have engaged in which I don't think are helpful. At the same time, we need to continue the dialogue, and I want to emphasize, I do not see a reignition of the Cold War. When you saw me in 1973, there was the risk of nuclear exchange, as we know. I do not see a reignition of the Cold War. I see friction in relations between Russia, the United States, and Europe, but I still believe that many of these issues can be resolved by dialogue, by the various means that we have of communicating with one another. The world, as you said, has dramatically changed since 1973. It's for the better. We have issues between ourselves and the Russians. I don't see that those issues can't be resolved over time.
Marquand. I'm with the Christian Science Monitor. When you talk about the problem of a minimalist Afghan commitment, could you say a little bit more about that? Because there seems to be a sense, who are you actually criticizing? Barack Obama is sending 17,000 more troops in. That's certainly more than we had before. What's minimalist about that?
Well, I don't think it's very well known that there's a group both here on this side of the Atlantic as well as on the other side that basically says we ought to go in, we ought to get rid of as many terrorists as we can, do the minimum, and get out of there. And part of that's in response to public opinion, and part of it is due to other factors such as a belief that Afghanistan, if the government isn't functioning effectively, that somehow that we will muddle through. So it is well known, there's great debate within the administration. I applauded the dispatch of 17,000 troops, but I have to give you a little straight talk, my friend. It's going to take a lot more than 17,000 troops. It's going to require a number more than that. It's going to require more than doubling the size of the Afghan army. It's going to require operations which will entail an increased loss of American blood and treasure, and that's why I emphasize that we've got to tell the American people what's at stake and that it's a long, hard haul. Yes.
Senator, Foreign Minister Lavrov today suggested that NATO should be replaced with the OSCE. I was wondering what you feel about that. And also, how do you think this new fresh start with Russia should look like that the Obama administration is trying to pursue, especially when it comes to Eastern European countries and their security interests? Thank you.
I think NATO has a role in the world, and we've proven that in places like Kosovo and in Afghanistan. And so I don't think it's a practical course of action to replace NATO with OSCE for a whole variety of reasons. Your second question was?
On the first start?
I think that I think it's that what seems to be a commitment on both sides to get back into serious negotiations concerning strategic weaponry, I think is a very good thing, and apparently the Russians are agreeable to exploring and moving forward with those negotiations, which have been stalled for a long time, as you know. And I wish them every success. I want to support in every way a betterment of relations between the United States and Russia. And any agreements we know lead to other agreements. I think it's a good thing to have started on strategic weapons negotiations. Go ahead, and go ahead.
On missile defense, how do you feel? Do you support the pursuing of this project, or do you think it's?
I obviously support the defensive weaponry. The Russians still have a very large arsenal of weapons and the means to deliver them. This defensive weapons system, which is being contemplated, Poland and the Czech Republic, does not pose any kind of a threat to anyone, much less the Russians. But so if the governments agree, I note with some interest the Czech Republic has postponed their vote on this issue. I think they're trying to figure out exactly what the future of this proposal is. But some things you revisit over and over and over again. The missile defense is defense, and how someone would view that, or some governments would view that as offensive, I still don't buy that logic. Yes.
Senator Julian Borger from The Guardian. On this question of minimalism again, there's nothing that Richard Holbrooke has said today about the plans for civilian surge, upgrading the police and so on, convinced you that that battle has been won within the Obama administration?
Listen, I just know for a fact that the debate has gone on. I mean, Washington is a town that in some ways is very small, and it's not just my view. I mean, it's widely reported that there has been this debate about a, quote, minimalist approach on both sides of the Atlantic. And so I want to repeat again, that was basically, in many respects, the approach we were using in Iraq, which was failing. And by the way, the situation in Iraq was far, far more severe than the one in Afghanistan today. We were losing more people in one day. There was higher civilian casualties in one day in Iraq than there is in 1 month in Afghanistan. So I know that debate is going on. I've been part of it with some of my colleagues in the Senate, and we will continue that debate and discussion. I have confidence, guarded, let me put it this way, I've guarded optimism that President Obama will announce very shortly an approach which is robust and is a counterterrorism, counterinsurgency such as I outlined in my remarks. I'm guardedly optimistic, but I also emphasize again, we have to tell our publics, both on this side of the Atlantic, on the other side of the Atlantic, that this is a very tough situation we're in. And as our forces move south in Afghanistan, there will be renewed conflict and casualties, just as there was when we began the surge in Iraq and moved into areas that were controlled by the jihadists. Thank you all very much. Thank you.